Okay.
Hello, everyone.
How are you guys? I think we are all set.
Woo.
You know what? I wonder if I should turn this a bit that way. Nope, the other way. Yep. Well, good evening. I am Dr. Josh, and this is Megan,
Hello.
the love of my life, who is my better half. Wait, and we are the Josh and Megan, the Josh. No. That's not it.
No, that's not us.
Not us. Okay.
That's not us.
You know what? We should probably put this over on this screen. No, we shouldn't, because then I'll get distracted. We don't want to get me distracted.
No.
No, we don't. All right. So we are Digital Hammurabi, and this is our second stream today. And the reason we're doing 2 streams today is because we're amazing. Actually, Skylar and I were going to try to do something tonight, I think, but he has a family, and that is important, and so he is making the best of that, which is very good. So,
All right.
Yes, we have discovered, as I mentioned in today's stream,
He's discovered. I really have nothing to do with this particular discovery.
What the heck are you even talking about? Gosh, that we can use Zoom to do a call-in program. So, we are going to try it.
We are.
Yes, we are. How does one do that, one might ask? Well, I'll tell you. And I guess we can put this in the side chat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any danger in giving out the number. It's Zoom is what we're using. And we've set it up as an audio call.
Yep.
And Megan is way cooler. There's no question.
Hmm?
Math Magic Pagan says that...
Hi.
Awesome.
Helen Galloway is following us. I'm assuming that's a new account because I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zoom is a really, really easy program. We're basically going to give you a phone number to call. You can call using your cell phone, your computer, whatever it is that you use to make telephone calls, and it'll just come in as a regular audio call through our computer. You will be muted when you come in, and when we're...
That's for everyone's safety.
Yeah, it's just to make sure we don't get like 8 people talking at the same time. So then we'll unmute you, and then you can say whatever it is you feel the need to say.
So if anybody knows, before I put this phone number in here, if there's... I know with like Google Hangouts, there was the danger of sniping. I don't think there's any danger of that because this is just you coming in as an audio. And it's in a completely separate program. But if anybody does know about problems with that, please let me know.
Lieutenant Galloway follows us on Twitch. That's what the binging is.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, so we have a Twitch account now.
Yeah, we do.
The account name is just Digital Hammurabi, all one word. On Tuesday, I'm going to do my very first Twitch stream, which I'm actually quite looking forward to. There's an awesome game called Heaven's Vault, in which you play an archaeologist. And also do some epigraphy stuff, and it looks really cool and fun, and I'm excited. So I will be playing that as my geeky gamer self, but also with my academic hat on, so you'll get the excitement of gaming, but also I'm not sure excitement is the right word, but my added academic commentary on what's going on and how accurate it is, how well the game's been made. So yeah.
All right, so I am going to put the number here in the side chat. Oh, wait. That's not a phone number. This is a phone number. So I just want to look real quick and make sure. Nope, nobody's saying anything that it's dangerous, so I guess we will find out. 6099. Coffee, please. All right, so that is the phone number. It is 929-205-6099. Now you'll also need a meeting ID, which I'll put in here as well, and that is 467-455-148. So there you go. So if you want to call in, you can call in and ask your question. We're going to try this out. Again, it will be strictly audio. You won't be on video, and so you don't have to worry about that. And you don't have to give your name if you don't if you prefer not to do that. But the number again is 929-205-6099, and the meeting ID is there. The meeting is there. Or the meeting ID is 467-455-148. I guess this is slightly more complicated than a standard call-in program, but I don't know any other way to do it. I'm sure there are other ways, but here we go. So, Megan is making tea and coffee, which is amazing. And I'm going to make sure that the computer... Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Making sure that... Oh, apparently we are also making breakfasts.
Yep.
Because my wife is amazing. She's making a breakfast for me in the morning. Right. Oh, and it looks like we have our first caller. All right. So let me unmute. Okay. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Let's see. Try say something else. Let's see if it's because it doesn't seem to be picking up on.
Yeah, I can mute I have a headset, so I'm muting myself. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, no, it's not picking up on. It's not picking up on the computer. Why, I wonder. I don't know if I've added desktop audio. Let's see. Computer speakers. Sorry, this is the first time we've done this, so can you guys hear him? He's saying he's there, but he's quiet. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. High definition audio device. There it is, right there. All right. Try again. Let's see. Shen phone 7. I'm assuming that's just your phone. Is that this one guy? Hello? Oh, he's muted himself. Or did I mute him? Hope I didn't mute him. You there?
All right, can you hear me? Yeah.
Ah, there we
there
go.
we
Yeah,
go.
now it's coming through. Okay. Very good. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So is it? Yeah. We shouldn't. I say you don't have to say who you are, and then I dox you.
ask who it is.
Sorry.
You doxed me.
Sorry, man. It's just you have a rather distinct voice. How you doing?
Oh, no, it's fun. I'm doing good. I just saw you guys were online. I was falling asleep, and you popped me, woke me right up. So I was like, well then.
Well, what is your question?
So, in the thing of Gilgamesh, in the end, I believe it talks about the old guy at the end, immortal. I believe he is.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
shouldn't talk while you're asking your question. That's part of the problem here. Well, say it again. The old guy at the end, and then I talked, and so I didn't hear you.
Yeah, Gilgamesh. I think he goes to seek him to ask some questions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was heard that someone would say that the old man could have been possibly Noah.
Yeah, it's the Mesopotamian figure who does the same stuff Noah does. He survives the flood and is granted immortality afterwards.
Yeah. Utanapishtim, or
Ziusudra,
Ziusudra.
depending on which text you're reading.
Yeah, the Sumerian would be Ziusudra. So Ziusudra means the one of long life. So yeah, the Noah character is based on the particularly the Akkadian flood story that we see in Atrahasis, and then what we see later in the Gilgamesh epic. So yeah, and you can see that when you read through the biblical text in Genesis, particularly in the talking about the birds that are sent out by Noah. You can see a lot of commonalities there. So
No, I can't remember. I'll ask another question. Does it also mention Nimrod in the story?
Not
Or
in
not?
Gilgamesh, no.
Okay.
I don't think Nimrod.
I think I heard somewhere that him and Nimrod had like a battle or something like that, and I can't remember. I think Nimrod read or something like that. That's why I asked.
That's not something I'm familiar with.
yeah.
Does Nimrod appear outside of the Bible? I haven't come across Nimrod in Mesopotamian literature.
Yeah.
Just in the Bible.
I'd have to think about
Yeah.
that.
I could very well be wrong, but there's not something I know of.
That was my only 2 questions.
Well,
They were
cool,
good
man.
questions.
Well, I mean, you're the first caller in our call-in program that we've ever had. I mean, this one guy, you should feel very special.
Yeah, I'm
thank you
usually
for
the
waking
first
up
of
and
a lot of
joining us.
things. Like I'm going to be a first on someone else's live stream, the first Christian they ever had. I was the first live stream for Patient Beard. I've been a lot of firsts.
Yeah, man. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for calling in.
Thank you. You guys take care. Have
All
a
right,
good
you
one.
too,
Bye-bye.
man. See ya.
We have someone else.
All right. Now, 17089. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for calling in. You're number 2. You're on with Dr. Josh and Megan.
Hey, I'm Nash Awesome.
Sorry, I gotta turn
Anyway,
the volume.
I had a question concerning ETs and aliens.
E.T. the alien?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Do you think that they are us from the future, like time travelers, or do you think that they are the ones who seeded us here? But they could be both.
Yeah, I would say both. No, I You talk about E.T. from the movie?
No, not from the movie. I mean actual aliens.
That is completely outside my specialism.
Well, I mean, are you asking because of Zechariah Sitchin? Like that's sort of...
Yeah. Well, you guys should be knowledgeable. You know, if you have a I would like to see what aliens are from your point of view in your paradigm. You know, because you guys are esteemed researchers. You know.
Yes, but we don't research aliens. We research ancient history. I have not seen any compelling evidence for aliens in the historical record that I am familiar with. So I can't really offer much of a comment on that.
I mean, I understand that, Zechariah Sitchin and, those that follow his, his understanding, his research. That's the conclusion. And of course, not just Zechariah Sitchin. I'm not trying to say that, but
right on.
But
I would like to say that the only evidence that we do have of aliens in history are probably the different religions we have. I would like to poke fun at the idea that the different religions are kind of like the different factions of aliens, and that it's possible that aliens are something in the mind completely, but at the same time, there's something that manifests out here. It's pretty wacky. You know what I'm talking about? A little bit of superposition, quantum shit going on.
Yeah, I mean, I will be the absolute first to say that I hope this doesn't sound weird, but I mean, how many habitable planets are there that are like ours in what we know of the universe, or at least what's theoretically? I've now told you more than I know, but I mean, we have like a lot of habitable planets that are like Earth, right? That we think are out there. I mean, I don't think it's...
I'd like to imagine so.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all that...
No, I mean, I would love for aliens to be a thing and to exist. That would be super, super cool. I'm a massive science fiction nerd, but...
I mean, I think probably where we come into it is, looking at the Sumerians and looking at the ancient Near East and, trying to make a connection there that aliens are the ones that brought about Sumerian culture, that sort of thing. I don't think there's any evidence for that. But I mean, certainly I'm not an expert on aliens in general, so.
That's all fine. Before I let you guys go, I would like to prop up an interesting idea.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of the Cherokee idea that like the world was seeded, but not that it was so much seeded, but like the creatures that live here now, they ran to the world when it was being created. They literally like ran to the world in a race, and they all like got there at their different times. But like if that is the case in the Cherokee explanation, that would mean that everyday animals are the aliens, and it makes the most sense if you really look at it from a weird perspective.
Huh. Yeah.
I've not heard that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right, and it's funny because like Indians will address the animals and plants as like their brothers and sisters.
That's interesting.
It's funny. It's like it's funny. We call them aliens, but they're also bipedal creatures like us, so they might as well be related to us somehow. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it is interesting. and actually, I think it'd be interesting to talk to Richard Madsen about this sort of thing because, I think Richard would be the first to say that his views are different from most others. But I think that he actually would have some interesting things to say about this. But
Richard who?
Madsen. He's in the chat.
Yeah, he's a regular on in our
Skylar.
show and on Skylar's show as well. So
Make sure to have someone type his name on the chat.
oh, okay, yeah, you can see him right now. He's in there, Richard Madsen.
All right, cool.
All right, well, thanks
All right,
for calling in, man.
Thanks for entertaining my ramblings.
No, you're good. It
It's
was
always
great.
interesting to talk to people.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, man. See ya.
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 more calls. This is great. All right. Can you hear us? You are on with. You know what? This is because if there are multiple people, how would they know? Well, I've unmuted you. Maybe that's how you can tell. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. That Zoom tells me when I'm unmuted.
Oh, well, there you
Zoom
go.
is very clever.
Well, thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Yes, you have often heard from me snarking in the chat. I am typically Yami Yomizuki.
Oh, hey.
Yes, I am an actual person. I'm not just snark in text, in case anyone was wondering. It was an easy mistake to make. I actually have a question that is also, in some ways, a suggestion. Since you are historians and since you are also breaking into kind of the nerdy gamer space, I was going to ask if you've ever heard of a channel called Overly Sarcastic Productions, because they're pretty big and they do a lot of history, some history that it's basically a classicist and a mythology nerd, the 2 people, and they do some brief, comedic rundowns of history and myth, and also gaming. They've done a lot of Assassin's Creed stuff.
Oh, nice. I hadn't
and
heard of them,
might-
but they look awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
got
they
them up
do
on the
similar
iPad
things to-
now.
Yeah, you might even be interesting to collaborate with them, because I'm sure they would be open to collaborate, bearing in mind that you know way more about Mesopotamian history. One of them actually has a legit bachelor's degree in classics.
Okay.
The other one, I don't know what her deal is. She's just a mythology nerd. But yeah.
No, that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yes, my hope for this channel is that it eventually becomes large enough and a large enough source of revenue that you can actually make money off of it
Yes.
someday.
That would
One
be
day.
that would be nice. And I think it would be nice because, the more that we can grow, the more that we can get our names out there. So much so, I think that we can really support some PhD students. And in case anybody that's listening doesn't know, of course, Yami Mizuki knows because he's been with us for a while. But we gave 3 scholarships. We were able to provide 3 scholarships to PhD students thanks to the supporters. So I think the bigger we get and the more we grow, the larger footprint we have and the more we can raise. So.
Yeah.
Yes, it all comes back to building up your mood, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
But I feel very sorry for people who haven't been with the channel for a long time and don't get that joke.
Well, that's really
Well,
kind.
you have you have to have a good mood. If you don't, just
Yeah. You have to have a good moo. You got to build up your moo. Your moo is not actually a spaceship, no matter what Zechariah Sitchin would have you believe.
Oh gosh.
It was the Stitchin stream, the second Stitchin stream was the first thing I think I ever watched. Although I think I was subscribed before that, because I found you. I have a great deal of interest in ancient languages and also ancient religion, and of course I am very thankful to you for helping me find Gina Konstantopoulos, because the study of like ancient mysticism and demonology is my thing. I basically found you guys as a byproduct of a video by Irving Finkel that popped up in my YouTube feed.
Nice. Yeah, and we did a stream last night. I don't know if you saw it. Anybody else that's watching, with
Misha and Jerry Griffith from History Unsettled.
Yeah, History
or
Unsettled.
Unsettled History.
And it was on what is his channel?
Disciple of Kairos.
Disciple of Kairos channel, Jim Majors, and it was an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes or something. We talked about ancient monsters. So
yeah, unfortunately I missed the live stream, but I will definitely be watching the video.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
That's super interesting. Also, a bit of a question: have you ever thought of like doing a discussion of the Sumerology in Snow Crash? Because it would certainly be interesting for me.
Yes. I need to reread it. But maybe I'm going to, right now, add that to my list of Patreon videos. So we get our patrons to vote on what video they want to see next. And I'm adding that in because that would be awesome. Sumerology in... Something that would actually be super interesting to do, that I'll probably email about, I'm going to look into one of the... So you might not know this, neurolinguistic programming is a real thing. Now it doesn't work the way that they talk about in the book, and there's no, the book of course has it that using Sumerian is somehow superior. No, using the language, whatever someone's native language is, that's the language you'd use, because that's what they've built neurolinguistic pathways around. Binary would be a very, very weird choice, even for a hacker. If they're an English speaker, you'd use English. But it's related to this word has a lot mixed up in it, and so I hate to even mention it because it's a misnomer anyway. But hypnotism, it's not really hypnotism, because when you hear hypnotism, you think putting someone in a trance and putting suggestions in their head, and of course hypnotism from hypnos, sleep. But neurolinguistic programming kind of skips the "you are very sleepy" bullshit, and there's a lot of ways you can screw with people's brains if you know the right words to use or the right usage of tone. That's something I've studied a little bit that I should probably study more. It might actually be interesting because there are people who are experts in this who are on YouTube who could maybe even be gotten to collaborate. I could try emailing one of them. Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Sort of the Sumerology versus neurolinguistic programming. Sure, Dantalian Jones, whose actual name is David Barron, but he's Dantalian Jones on here, could probably do something about that. And that would also be a very good way to potentially draw in someone else's audience, because again, it's all about building up your moo.
Never a bad thing.
Not about flying in zoos, no.
We might have to cut you off here, Yami, because we've got 3 other people waiting.
That's fine. I talked too much, and I've talked plenty already.
Oh, no. We both talked too much. But thank you for calling. It was lovely to chat to you.
It was great.
No problem.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right. Let's see. So, I guess Zoom
You are unmuted. Hello.
Okay. Is this me talking?
That is you talking.
Okay, so my question is, so religions like Judaism, Zoroastrianism, etc., they develop monotheism. My question really is, is there any specific about the history of those religions which caused them to develop monotheism, or was it kind of more random, that they specifically?
There is a book out by, I think it's Mark Davis, who does work in Ugaritic, where he talks about the development of monotheism, particularly coming through Canaanite and Israelite culture. I have it, and I haven't read it yet because I just got it a couple of days ago, actually. I don't know of
Anything special.
the rationale as to why it would have. I mean, if you look at one of the things that I will say is, if you look at how it's been argued, at least, who was it that argued? He wrote the Tammuz book. Boy, that's terrible. Anyway, I can't remember his name. He's a giant in our field, and can't remember his name. Anyway, he wrote and showed how in the fourth millennium, in the third millennium, particularly early on in the early dynastic period, the gods were seen as kind of their general forces in nature, so clouds and the sun and thunder and those sorts of things. And then as time progressed, particularly Jakobsen, yes, thank you, Torkel Jakobsen. And then in the second millennium, you see more of a development of them as individuals. They become more personalized, and they become more equated with like the kings and rulers. And then later in the first millennium, you see them as like personal deities. So I wonder if there's some sort of a connection there. But no, I said all that to sort of fill some air. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know. If I had to hazard a guess, it seems like the God of the Old Testament is a regional, a cultural specific deity whose people, whose city become just more powerful and more powerful. So they have to explain that somehow. So the explanation is that their God is the only God. It's kind of like a my dad's better than your dad thing, except in this case, my dad is the best and yours just doesn't exist.
And you see this sort of thing in the first millennium in general, because you have, these Mesopotamian city-states that each have their own particular deity, and they start to sort of syncretize. The gods start to syncretize with one another, so that you have Marduk and you have Asher. You have these. Why am I not? What?
City gods?
Yeah, but they're
national gods.
National gods. And so, given that we know that Canaanite religion, Israelite religion was not, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but certainly there was not this monotheistic sense early on, at least, and it develops ultimately into a monotheistic, type of faith. I wonder if there's a connection there.
Mm-hmm. So some people, sorry, just to interrupt, some people are asking for the number. The number, if you want to call in, is 929-205-6099. And then the access code is 467-455-148.
I'll type
Josh
it in the side chat. Josh is
going to put that in the side chat for you. So if you want to call in and talk, go for it. It would be lovely to hear from you.
So I know we probably didn't answer your question.
No, sorry.
Well.
No, it's fine. It's interesting to get your take on it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. I'm going to run through real quick.
Go
Is
for
it okay?
Yeah.
Do you want me to start the next call?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We are going to unmute the next caller. Yes. Welcome to Digital Hammurabi. We'll be right back.
He'll be right back. I'm staying here. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I don't even know if I'm talking right now.
You are talking right now, and I can.
I'm talking. I know I'm talking right now. I don't know if I'm being heard right now, but apparently I am. Hey, I have a question about Old Testament prophecy.
Okay. In that case, hold that thought, because
is Josh
Josh
taking
is
a break?
the person you want. Yes, he's just
Sure, okay.
run to the bathroom. I'm going to take a minute to scroll back up and make sure we haven't missed anything.
Not a problem.
Yes, we have the picture, the number. Yeah, so if you want to call in, everybody, the number is in the side chat. and the access code is directly underneath it. So it would be lovely to hear from you. We have a couple of people in the list, and we have a question about Old Testament prophecy, and I feel awful because I don't really do Old Testament stuff, so we have to
be able to answer
yeah.
part of this. I'm not sure yet.
Oh, well, Josh is back, so we'll both give it a go.
I'll wait till Josh comes back.
I just walked back in.
Hey, are you ready, Josh?
Yes. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
All right. So here's my question. I don't know if you study this. There's literally dozens of these passages in the Old Testament, and they predict returning. Basically, they say the Jews will return from, the ends of the earth, all these nations. I don't know if you've ever studied this, but a lot of Christians will say that these passages are actually predicting the 20th century return. And I've done a lot of study. For example, like ends of the earth. The knowledge of the ancient Jews seems to be like 800 to 1,000 miles in any direction. And the Jews were scattered that far. So one of the passages that is, are you familiar with these at all? I don't want to keep
sure.
Okay. So one of the passages I think is really difficult to explain is in Isaiah 11. And it talks about returning from like coastlands, which are, like kind of islands of the Mediterranean. And it talks about returning from like all these different nations. And the argument is they were not scattered this far when Isaiah would have been writing. And therefore, they must have been predicting the recent return from last century. I'm wondering if you have any idea of how would we determine whether they were predicting a return during their time?
Oh, sure. I mean, so this sort of language, there's something called apocalyptic genre, and it's kind of a complicated, and I'm sure you know about it. I'm saying that more for the audience. Apocalyptic genre is something that's particularly well known. You start to really see it develop in the Second Temple period, particularly down in the second half of the first millennium. And so this sort of language about, people that, if you think about the way that particularly the Israelites, the Jews lived during this period, there are deportations, there's conquering, there's, the northern 10 tribes are taken away, then the southern 2. So lots of captivity, people being scattered. And of course, when, speaking of Isaiah, you see, and of course in the other prophets as well, this is God intentionally doing this, calling, his, sorry. Sorry, something happened with Zoom. It looks really strange now. But scattering his people. And so, calling them back from, the four quarters, this is sort of a trope. One of the things that's interesting and frustrating about apocalyptic literature is it's hard to pin down, and it's intentionally very nebulous.
It's kind of like reading your horoscope in the paper. Like, there's enough general information that you can probably apply it to most situations. Yeah. But it's not specific enough to be, like, provable or accurate.
Let me go get a book, because it's on my nightstand.
Why don't I get it?
Oh, okay, you get it.
And you keep going.
It's by John Collins, and he wrote a book on apocalyptic literature, the apocalyptic genre. And again, it's not easy to nail down what apocalyptic is, because it's sort of a constellation of characteristics. But when you read through these passages that talk about this sort of thing, even, of course, the more well-known apocalyptic literature would be something like the Book of Revelation or parts of Daniel, these sorts of things. People are always trying, Daniel chapter 9, for example, always trying to nail down the 70 weeks, where is this and when did this happen? And but the reality is, the reason that there's such debate is because it's written in such an ambiguous way. It's intentionally done that way because then it can be applied to all these different circumstances. The book, thank you for getting this, by the way. I don't know if everybody can see that, but The Apocalyptic Imagination by John Collins. John Collins wrote a fantastic commentary on the book of Daniel in the Hermeneia series. And this is an introduction to Jewish apocalyptic literature, the third edition. And it's a fantastic book. He goes through things like the book of Enoch, which, of course, is very popular. Lots of people utilize the book of Enoch in different ways. But again, it's this sort of ambiguous genre that allows for people to try to plug it in different places. I don't think there's any question, I'm being very long-winded, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
But I don't think there's any question that these types of prophecies, these types of looks to the future are not in any way to be taken as fulfilled today. I understand that, I was an evangelical Christian for 25 years, so I taught on the rapture and I taught on the millennial reign, the tribulation period, and all of those things. So I'm very familiar with it. But I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think apocalyptic genre should be taken that way.
Okay. Yeah, because with Daniel, I've studied the four empires, and I think I'd agree with you that the fourth empire is Greece, but there's all these arguments where you can combine Media and Persia to make Rome the fourth empire, and it's almost like they were intentionally trying to throw us curveballs so we wouldn't figure it out exactly.
It's interesting with those four empires. Of course, when I put out my Daniel video, if anybody hasn't seen it, when I put out the Daniel video on the channel, that was the pushback, right? Media Persia.
Yeah.
The problem is not so much how to understand Media and Persia. Should it be one? Should it be two? It's more how do each of the visions, each of the processes that are shown in Daniel, how do they end? Because if you read, 10 and 11 in particular, chapters 10 and 11 in particular, they end with Greece. I mean, there's just no question that they ended Greece. And I think that I think that the problem is less trying to understand Media Persia and more trying to. I think they'd have to wrestle with why does it end very specifically with Antiochus.
Yeah. That's the same. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say the other thing is I forgot it. Rats. Sorry, you go ahead because I forgot.
No, that's the same conclusion. My theory is that if you work forward, you get to Media Persia, then you get to Rome. But if you work backwards, you get to Greece. And I think the Greece argument as the fourth empire I think it's a much better argument. Of course, I don't know if you were a dispensationalist, but they will argue that, there's a prophetic gap on all these different chapters, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I was a mid-Acts dispensationalist, if that means anything to you.
No.
So I generally speaking, dispensationalists, like standard dispensationalists, are Acts chapter 2. So they see like the church beginning in Acts chapter 2 with the coming of the Holy Spirit. We were way smarter. I say that with my tongue, firmly set in my cheek there. We knew that it didn't actually happen until the middle of the book of Acts, so Acts 9, maybe Acts 13. Some crazies were Acts 28. I mean, that's crazy. But we knew it was the Apostle Paul. It didn't start till then. So, but anyway, but that's definitely, you're exactly right. There's this sort of gap where the prophetic program is held in abeyance, and God issues in the dispensation of grace, which is something not seen in the prophetic texts, and it will be picked up after the rapture. The 7-year tribulation period. This is where you get, and again, I'm not saying this for you. I'm saying this for everybody listening. Of course, they probably all know it too, but
we might have to move on because we've got 5 other people waiting. Sorry.
Guys, I appreciate your call. Thank you so much for taking.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been great.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Sorry, I will definitely go on and on. That was not him. That was me. Megan laying down the law. All right, there's somebody here, and I don't know who it is at all, but we're gonna see. Hello. I don't know that we know you at all. Not even really well.
Me? No idea.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How's you?
Very good.
I just wanted to call in, shout out, say, keep it up. You're great. It's absolutely great. Just keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
You are the man. And I wanted to say thank you for being like one of the greatest mods here on Skylar's channel. Is just it's great. Really appreciate it. I mean, I really appreciate all of our mods, but
this one we're
this
talking to
individual
at the moment,
here is just it's great. So
You're just making me shy now. This is worse. Like, this is why I didn't want to phone in. Oh, well, that's it. I'll move on to the next person before he's embarrassed me anymore.
Have a great evening.
I will indeed. Keep it up. See you later.
Thank you.
Okay,
Take
bye.
care.
Bye.
All right.
For those who are unaware, that was Math Pig
Wait,
or Math Magic Pagan.
you doxed him.
Well, but I doxed him with his online name, so I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's okay.
I get-
And he did say he was calling in. So anyway, we have several people waiting, so we will move on.
All right. And you have been unmuted. Welcome to. I don't know what to say. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi. Hello?
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
You are on.
Hi.
Sorry,
I have a question.
How effective is
Yeah.
this? Is it can you tell? Is it pretty easy to tell that you've been unmuted,
Zoom says you are now unmuted.
or is there
I don't know. It said there were 7 people ahead of me, so I was expecting to wait a lot longer, but
Oh, I
glad to
wonder
be
if-
on.
Oh, you know what? These are in alphabetical order.
Oh, geez.
Or numerical
Okay,
order.
everyone, I'm sorry. We've just been going down the list. It appears that the list has been sorted based on your phone number. So if you've been waiting a while, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to look at this and see if there's a way we can just sort it based on...
Yeah, I'm a terrible human being, and I apologize. Sorry, everyone. I don't think there's anything in
No,
there.
we're just going to keep going.
Yeah,
Push
sorry.
ahead, everyone. Sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. So I have a question about Genesis 2:21 through 24. It's the reference to the creation of Eve from Adam's rib, quote unquote. And I stumbled across something in research recently, researching Philo, namely his allegorical interpretation of Genesis, book 2:7, 19 to 22, for anyone who wants to look it up. I don't know Hebrew, but I know Greek really well. And what I found curious is that, obviously he argues for like an allegorical interpretation of everything, obviously. And in that verse in particular, he mentions that, that Adam could not have had more than 2 sides. And side is the English translation of the Greek zevra. And the Greek term can't generally mean side, like if something has 2 sides, but it can also be interpreted as rib. And you need context to distinguish. And what struck me is that Philo seems to be completely unaware of the possible interpretation of, Eve being created by Adam's rib. And presumably, he knew the Hebrew. And I have found some content online, rabbinical sources mostly, arguing that the Hebrew should also be interpreted as side, like that Adam, was somehow split in half, or that just some flesh was taken out of his side. Notably, it's the rib. If it is a rib, it gets replaced by flesh. So I don't know, it doesn't get replaced by bone. And I think I asked you on a stream one time, and you gave a quick response, and you said I think it should actually be interpreted as rib. But knowing the Hebrew, can you sort of exegete a little bit and explain why someone might think it does not mean rib, and why Philo seemingly was unaware of it, and Alexandrian Jews probably were unaware of it as well, using the Greek Septuagint with this word?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So tsela, the Hebrew word, it's also, you also see it in Akkadian. It's cognate, and it can definitely mean a side, like a side of a building, or sorry, I'm trying to pull this from memory, which may or may not work out well for me. But I think some of the things that are, and I haven't read detailed commentary on this in a while. So forgive me. I will definitely look this up, and maybe we'll talk about it at a later date. I always say that, don't I? And then I don't always do it.
Well, what the thing that caught my eye in Philo's quote was he said, "And which side did he take? For we may assume that only two are indicated, as there is in fact nothing to suggest a large number of them. Did he take his left side or his right side?" And he goes on to say it's filled with flesh, and he just seems clueless that it could possibly be a rib, because he's specifically harping on this verse, and I just found it really fascinating that we have this cultural perception of Eve eating an apple, even though it's not an apple, and her being made from a rib, even though it might be a side. And so I'm just wondering if, I guess you're not really prepared with an answer at this moment, but I find it fascinating in my own.
Yeah, it definitely is. And since you're telling me that you've asked me this before, and clearly I haven't done that great of a job answering it, I need to write this down. And so Megan is.
Well, if you ever answered on a future stream, I will probably be tuned in because I listen to all your stuff. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I'll put something out, something short at least.
Okay. And I could send you, I don't know if you guys have a link on your description or anything, but if I could email you the quote if you want,
Yes, please. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, and you can can email us at
digitalhammurabi@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Great. All right. I'll shoot you an email. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.
We're going to go from the bottom because Steve Bowden has been waiting for like 8 million years. And because we're not sure what his number is, but because the numbers sorted numerically, and he's been waiting for a long time, I suspect he's near the bottom.
Okay, we are going to try.
We're going to give it a go.
All right, so Steve, if this isn't you, I'm sorry.
Are you Steve?
Yes.
All right. Man, Megan's good.
Thank you for having me on. I've only been waiting 32 minutes, so it's not hours and hours. By the way, I have a fan on in the background. Is it causing distortion for you?
No, can't hear it.
Okay, that's great. Just a couple of questions come to mind. First, I have to say this. Long-time viewer, first-time caller. While we were waiting for your show to start, I was having a good conversation with Nick J., one of your mods. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I'd call you up in my best radio voice and tell you about it. We were talking about how the show may need to create a cuneiform password to log in. And of course, it's pretty hard to make cuneiform with ASCII keyboard characters.
Yeah.
And it made me think, my God, if you're working on a scholarly paper, is there like an add-on program to Microsoft Word so you can switch your keyboard and create cuneiform characters?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. It's interesting. There aren't always. Let me say it the other way. There are very few times that I've had to actually use cuneiform, and that sounded weird. Actually, type characters in cuneiform. Almost always we use transliteration, which can still be kind of tricky. But the reason is that it's very rare that this sort of standardized Neo-Assyrian or Old Babylonian cuneiform font, I guess that's what it would be, a font, that they use would be useful, because oftentimes we would write it, you'd put the cuneiform in because you'd want to say, this is what the tablet looks like. This is the sign. We don't know what the sign is. It's written this way, and so you would write it in by hand anyway. So it doesn't happen all that often. But yeah, I think to do, I don't even, we use Unicode, I think, and you have to hit like U34967 or something goofy to do different signs. It's really complicated.
It looks awesome though.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if it looks good, maybe it would impress other scholars and your papers would get published just for the fireworks. But I also want to know, and this is my last question, I don't want to hog, How did you get to know Skylar Fiction?
That's a good question. So
through porn.
Porn, yes.
That's not the actual answer. I just couldn't resist. Sorry.
Part of what
there's this horrible thing on Facebook where someone sends us around to make sure who my real friends are. Tell me in one word how we met. And I always type in porn set. Because I hate these goddamn memes that go around. Yeah. Anyway, please get back to Skylar Fiction.
Sure. So one of the things, the whole reason that I got on YouTube in the first place was I was listening to Aaron Ra, and he was interacting with, I think, a creationist maybe, and I listened to watched a whole bunch of his videos, and it frustrated me because it would frustrate me when they would talk about the Old Testament text in particular. Of course, Genesis came up all the time, and then I remember watching Non Sequitur and watching Steve and Kyle, and I can't remember who was on, but it was sort of a tipping point. Somebody came on and was talking about something, and was
it Rob?
It might have been
Rob.
Yeah, and I love Rob, Sentinel Apologetics, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But it made me call in. Actually, made me email in because I didn't think you could call these people, of course. But Kyle called me and had me on the show, and that sort of was. I kind of felt like my calling was unbeliever defense. What would you say? Like the defender of agnosticism and atheism. That sounds weird, but because I see so many people with theistic backgrounds
using bad arguments and relying on Hebrew when they actually don't know Hebrew, and making arguments from Hebrew verses that they can't read, and that are being misused. And often it's not their fault because they're reading people who should know better and do know what they're talking about, misusing this material. So one of the things that I think Josh is very good at and really wanted to help out with is actually looking at the evidence that is being used to make these arguments and saying, well, I see where you're coming from, I understand this argument, but it doesn't make sense with the text. This is what the text actually says. This is what it's actually trying to do.
Yeah, and so Skylar was somebody else that I kind of stumbled upon, and I heard him, of course, doing what he does, talking to theists, and it was frustrating to me many times because he would make an argument, and I think it was a good argument, but Skylar doesn't have a Hebrew background, and so, but he's talking to people that are saying, no, you just don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand the text. And I would go, yeah, but you don't. But you don't understand the text. So I kind of, I've kind of learned to, what do I say here? Be helpful. I try to be helpful, maybe, because I don't. I've said this a bunch. I don't debate very well, and. Which is why I got destroyed by that dynamic duo that I'm sure we all know that I don't want to repeat their names. But no, that's sort of what it is. And of course, I just kind of fell in love with Skylar because he's just I think he's just such a nice guy, and we have a lot of fun together. So yeah.
Oh, well, that's a great story. Thank you for telling me. And by the way, Skylar always wears a sort of cap. And I was thinking the two of you could take a page out of his book and wear very colorful fedoras.
And every time we start, go dun 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 dun.
Anyway, thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course.
And
sorry,
hope
it was
to talk
such a
to you
waste.
again sometime.
Yeah, it'd be great. And you are a mod now, just so you know when you.
Oh, hey, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
All right, I promise to be a delight.
Good.
I believe that.
All right, take care, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Do you want to keep going from the bottom?
Yes, we can. All right. So do we need to say the number again? Or
Oh, yeah.
actually, how long have we been going? About an hour. Okay.
I'm going to put the number in the side chat again. If you want to call us, please do. We'll probably go.
Yeah, if we don't get to you, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
But we have 3 people waiting right now. And yeah, so anyway, all right. There we go. All right, welcome. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, is it me?
It is you.
Well, fantastic. It's your sweet and loving sister.
Oh, Nikki.
Hello, friends. Well, I'm so fantastically, wonderfully happy to be on with you, and this is so fantastic. I'm so great for you guys. I just wanted to ask you, Joshua, as I am a novice to the iPad Pro, what are all of these great advantages that you have been making so much fuss about that I have been making you so envious about?
Wait, we've got to get headphones. That's just all because I laughed, and when I laughed, you said something that was critical, and I thought I'll be able to piece it together, and then I didn't. So everybody else heard it. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me take you off speaker and see if that helps a little bit. But what I was saying was that I know that you are a iPad and a Mac aficionado, and this is my first iPad anything, and it's my iPad Pro, and you were going on and on about how great everything is, and I just wanted to ask you, what are these advantages that you're making so much fuss about which you are so envious?
Why is your iPad awesome? Why is the iPad that Nikki has absolutely amazing?
Are you calling it just to kind of rub it in that you got this iPad first? Is that what this is?
Just a little bit, yes. But seriously, I have been looking at this thing, and I'm like, well, this thing is fantastic. But what really, what are the features that you are so envious about?
Yeah, I mean, so the iPad that I had, just for everybody that doesn't know, was the second generation iPad, right? And so Nikki has the third, and I now have the third, which is because that's how envious I was. I went and got one. Yeah. So it has the boy, what does it have? I can't remember now because what are the differences?
I haven't used that one, so I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, that keyboard setup is one thing, because you can't use that.
It's got a really cool magnetic case that has a keyboard inlaid in it, so you can just kind of stand it up and type without having to worry about attaching the keyboard because it's already there.
And you can't use that one with the second generation one. It's really hot in here.
It is. Let me turn the AC down.
It's got the new Apple Pencil, which is a lot cooler, and it charges by just magnetically holding to the top of the iPad. I'm really doing terribly here, Nikki. Terribly.
No, it's totally fine. All of these things are fantastic features that I absolutely love about that. And to that anonymous person that helped us with all of that, I'm sure he's listening, and I really appreciate all of the help that we got from that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just wanted to call and give you guys my support. I love you so much. And I will talk to you soon. You guys sound great. I'm really excited about your call-in show.
Thank you, Nikki.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, that was cool.
That was awesome.
Sister called it. All right, so our next caller, you are now on the air. Hi. Can you hear us? I think I heard my voice come through, and then maybe hit mute. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, there we go.
Oh, hello. Hello, Josh. Hello, Megan.
Hi.
My name is Min. I want to ask you guys about the thing I see in the Old Testament, pretty much like throughout the whole collection. It seemed to me like the culture at of Judaism at that time seemed to be obsessed with foreskin for some reason. Like I think like in Genesis 9, I think Noah cursed his son Ham because he saw him getting drunk and being naked. And I think in Exodus 4, Yahweh intended to kill Moses because he failed to circumcise his son until his wife cut the foreskin of the son to save his life. And I think in the first Samuel chapter 18, when David guided his soldier to kill 200 Philistines, they collect 200 foreskin as a result of the battle. So I wonder, from your study of the Mesopotamian culture, what is it about the foreskin that the culture tends to be obsessed with in the Bible?
Boy, that is a good question. And one that I haven't looked into, which is not satisfying at all right now, is it? And I think that's one that I just need to write down, and just because you're not the first person to ask. And it came up on Skylar's channel once, and as I do so many times, I thought I really need to look into that. And then, can I blame it on MS?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because that's what happens. 19 seconds go by, and I forget it. So I am going to write that down.
It's written down.
Yes.
It's on the list.
Megan has written it down. I think that they did, if I'm remembering this, I think that they did circumcision in Egypt as well, but definitely don't quote me on that. But yeah, I think that's actually really important to understand. I mean, certainly, from the perspective of the biblical text, it was to set, Israel apart. It was to set the Israelites apart. But, sort of behind that is actually something really important that we need to look into. So, yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So, Dr. Josh, so do you remember in the Code of Hammurabi, did he mention something about, the penis or the foreskin in the commandments? Well, I haven't read it, so I don't know. So
I don't know of anything. Yeah, I don't know, but it's nothing jumps out at me from the Mesopotamian side.
No.
But let me look into it, and maybe I'll put a short video together on that.
Like a quick.
Yeah, like a daily data that we've gotten away from because I'm terrible.
Because we can't put out a daily video because it's impossible, and we have 3 children and a job.
I'm also terrible.
You're not terrible.
That's what I've learned.
It's okay. Yeah, it's something I'm curious, and hopefully you will post a clip about that.
Mm-hmm. No, we'll look into that, and we'll put something up.
Yeah,
hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. So we have 2 callers left, and that'll probably do it because I'm getting a little tired, oddly enough. All right, so 2 callers. Here we go. You are on the air. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yep.
Hello.
You are on. Yeah, it's you. You there?
Maybe if we mute and then unmute.
Oh no!
Zoom will tell them.
Oh, so it's your number starts with 408.
I think that's the.
Oh, that's me.
Yes.
Yeah. Am I there?
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
You are.
Oh,
on.
hey, Josh. Yeah. Alan from Alabama.
Hello, Alan.
Hey there. A long-time listener and first-time call like everybody else. And thank you so much for doing this, man. I mean, you don't realize just how much people have got this angst, and they just want to talk to some empirical source and really get something that's good information.
Oh, it's really sweet. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope we can help a little bit.
That Daniel prophecy video you did, I really enjoyed that. Oh, and good. If we could just if we could just nail these prophecies down, because that's like one of the biggest crutches that the theists cling to as evidence for their existence of God.
And if there's any way I can help support making more videos in that, I'd be happy to do it, because I just feel like that's one of the big angles they go for.
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting. There was a lot of pushback when I did that video, sort of responding to Pastor Mike Winger on, and then when I went on to Aaron Ross' show. A lot of pushback because, I mean, there really is, the prophecy against Tyre, the prophecy, particularly in Daniel 9, those are, these Isaiah 53, sort of Psalm 22, these sort of linchpins. And so here's the reality, and again, this isn't really for you, Alan, but for everybody that's listening, our goal is not now, and I doubt your goal is to like be some sort of a jerk to come out and go, your beliefs are dumb and you're dumb for believing them. That's not, I don't think that's most people's point.
It's not.
Yeah, it's to say, it's okay to have faith. It's okay, obviously, under in my mind, in certain circumstances, like it's okay to be a Christian. It's just, what kind of a Christian are you going to be? And if you're going to be the kind of Christian that demonizes people for who they love, or demonizes people for not believing your particular brand of theology, that you become this judgy sort of, frankly, person that I used to be, then that's when it's really problematic. And so I think that by going back to these passages like Isaiah 53 and showing, hey, this actually had fulfillment in its time. It was meant to, it was talking about a particular person, maybe more broadly as Israel, but it was definitely speaking about an individual. And looking at Daniel 9 and showing how this is, particularly Daniel 11, this is talking about Antiochus. This is talking about a very particular time, and written during that period. And sorry, Alan, I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a thing here, but one of the things that, if you're out there and you're listening to this, you're listening to me, you're listening to Alan, and we're saying, hey, you need to look more into these prophetic texts, and you say, oh, well, that's just your opinion. Well, I mean, I guess that's true, that's our opinion, but it's also the opinion of all of those scholars on the bookshelf behind me, and all of the secondary literature that stems from them. So, if you're holding to sort of a Gleason Archer sort of approach to the text, it's probably a good idea to rethink that, because the majority of scholarship, the vast majority of scholarship, even evangelical scholarship, would not hold the positions that I think many of these theists, evangelical Christians, fundamentalist evangelical Christians hold. So
I agree, and there's I want everybody to have an opinion. I just want it to be an informed opinion.
Exactly.
And that's the big difference. Yeah. On some of the language, I want to, I don't know, this might be language that you can use in some of your interactions. I mean, what I don't see when it comes to that great claims require extraordinary evidence, or extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And that there's something wrong with that, and that people do not focus on what's at risk with the claim. And that is why the extraordinary evidence is required. And that really needs to be focused in on, I feel like, when that statement is made, because you're looking at a complete paradigm shift of your perception of reality, God versus no God, flat earth versus round earth, that kind of a paradigm shift. And it's the thing that is at risk with the statement, and it's not just the statement itself, but it's at what's at risk, your complete paradigm shift of reality.
Yeah.
And another thing I was going to say is that the intelligent design people, and that there's not enough emphasis put in on that clock watchmaker analogy that they always bring up, and but they use that comparison, and that that's their rationale for evidence of creator, and that because there's no other world out there like ours to compare to know if one has ever been created before, is why that is not a good argument. And I don't see that being brought up in conversations enough. But how do you feel about that, me saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, sorry, you can, I feel like I'm monopolizing this conversation, sorry.
No, go for it. This is your wheelhouse.
I mean, I think one of the problems that I think people don't like to face, and again, I say this having come from this background, is that if there is a possible explanation, if there's a way that even something like the resurrection, for example, or something like that, let's take something that's not so
controversial.
Yeah, it's still controversial, but let's take the prophecy of Tyre, right? The destruction of Tyre in Ezekiel 26.
Sure.
When you look at that, people, as you guys all well know, now, and I'm sure you know, people go to that text and they give up very quickly the very clear and straightforward, even in the English, reading of that passage to say that Nebuchadnezzar is the sole agent that is supposed to destroy Tyre. There's just there's no question about it. And when you get into the Hebrew, it's even less controversial, if it's controversial at all in the English. The only thing really, to sort of not sidetrack, but the only thing really that's difficult to deal with it is the English many nations, right? But which is very easy to understand when you get into the Hebrew. Nonetheless, yeah, and so if anybody's interested, I've got a video up on this. Tired of Hearing About Tyre is the title of it. And you know, the problem is that when you back into your position, when you say, all right, I'm starting with my conclusion, now how do I find evidence that fits this? You know, then these prophecies can make sense to you. So, okay, well now it says many nations, like the waves of the sea, and so, all right, Nebuchadnezzar is the first one. Oh, look, it switches from he to they in verse 12 or whatever it is. Oh my gosh, that's what this is. There's a possibility that that's how that solves the problem. Irrespective, you know, you don't go looking into what the Septuagint says, for example. You don't go looking into other parallel passages in the prophets that use that sort of similar language. You don't do any of that. You find a way that it can kind of work. And that's the problem that I see. Because what I'm coming up against when I talk about things like prophecy and slavery and you know, issues like this, I have people coming at me and saying, definitively prove that X is not possible.
Right.
And there's no way that anybody can do that. And that shouldn't be the criterion. As you're saying, extraordinary claims, extraordinary evidence. And I think that you can't go with, okay, what's conceivably possible over and against what all of the evidence, all of the data points seem to suggest. A great example that actually, and then I'm going to stop talking, I'm sorry. There are Omen texts, Akkadian Omen texts that talk about, I think it's about Sargon. I'm going to get that. It's been years since I've thought about this. But it talks about if there is a hole in the wall, then the city will be taken. I can't remember exactly how it goes. I'm so terrible. But nonetheless, what the omen ends up being this, that there's wordplay that shows that if it's either written after the fact and that wordplay was generated based on what happened in the historical event, or it was actually prophetic and it was written beforehand. And of course, any fundamentalist Christian will say, well, obviously it was written afterwards, because we know that those, you know, Akkadian prophecies, those omens, they're not true, right? But and I would agree, right? It's written after the fact. But the problem is that same level of healthy skepticism is not applied when it comes to often when it comes to one's own personal faith. So, yeah, okay.
I look forward to the next call-in show. I wasn't prepared for this one. Those two topics just kind of popped in my head.
They were good ones.
Well, thanks, and I just want to say thank you to both of you for doing this, because I mean I've asked for this every time I watch your episode.
I'm so glad that it was Cyrus the Skeptic. You can thank him. He he kind of said in a nice way, Josh, what are you, an idiot? Zoom does this. And I went, I totally did. I didn't know that. So
we'll be doing this again. So if I just wanted to say quickly, everyone, we're not taking new calls right now because it's getting kind of late.
Yeah.
Josh gets up at 4 a.m. But we will do this again.
Yeah.
Quite possibly next Sunday because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, really. It's been very good. Well, Alan, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you for calling.
All right, take care.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and our last caller of the evening. And there you are. Hi.
Oh, hey. Looks like you guys saved the best for last.
No doubt.
How are you this evening?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
Oh, I am like a muffin in the oven, ready to eat. I'm so happy to get to speak to you, Dr. Josh.
I'm hungry now.
I mean, Megan's okay too. But,
we all know,
you know
that he runs this show.
Oh,
so
come
don't
now.
worry.
This is your channel.
Like, you know, oftentimes I hear you talking in that ancient Hebrew, and I was wondering, could you say something like really sexy in Hebrew? It would really, you know, it would make my muffin finish in the oven, if you know what I mean.
Your best sexy Hebrew voice, please.
All right, here we go. Here we go. What can I say? Mizmor le David. Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Bina deshe yar bitseni. Al memnochot inachalei.
What was that in English?
I don't want to say because I feel like I'll go straight to hell. Anybody that's listening that knows Hebrew said, why is he quoting Psalm 23 in a sexy voice? That's why. The Lord is my shepherd. Oh, come on.
Well, it's a sweet day. It's a very sweet day here. You know, this call-in feature is I think it's gonna do wonders for you and that Skylar fiction.
Oh, that's Skylar. That guy.
I really like that Skylar fiction, but, you know, he's no Josh Bowen. That's what I'll say.
Oh, gosh.
You know, when I go to sleep and close my eyes, there you are, sitting there like a bright, shining star up in the sky. Sometimes I sing a little song to myself, maybe thinking that one day that Dr. Josh Bowen will be right there by my side.
Oh my gosh! I just want everybody to know this was not intentionally done. We didn't save him for the end intentionally.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was totally worth the wait. You know, I would wait online for 2 days, Dr. Josh, if you needed me to. In fact, if it'd be all right, could you just like leave the phone on next to you while you sleep? But just make sure it's on the opposite side of Megan. I want to be as close to your mouth as possible. I want to hear every breath. I just, you know, every time you breathe out, I'll breathe in.
Oh my gosh. Well, anybody else that's probably wouldn't be able to go on any longer, but
thank you.
I should probably let you get some sleep.
Yeah.
I know you got to be up real early tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in, caller, that I do not know who you are.
Megan, you better take good care of him.
I try.
I'll be waiting around the corner. I'm waiting.
Oh, dude, we love you.
Oh,
I don't, you know. Oh, got a little bit of the vapors. What's happening? I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right.
I think we might have to end it here before we get demonetized for obscenities.
Well, thank you, caller.
Thank you, mystery caller.
I'm sure that we will speak again soon.
Oh, we will. Oh, we will.
Good night.
Good night.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Oh my Lord. Maybe, Richard. Maybe.
Well, that was wonderful.
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
wonderful.
I think it went up 10 degrees in here from laughing. Hope is from the laughing.
Either that or you've got a very uncomfortable conversation coming up tomorrow. So before we finish, I have just a couple of questions that have been waiting in the inbox for us to do a question and answer session. So someone is also asking again about Eve and the rib edge thing, so we're going to do a video on that. But they also ask, the word Yahweh in Hebrew has the same root letters as the word to be. Can Yahweh be understood or translated as being or existence?
So this is why when you see in Exodus 3, it talks about, say to them, Yahweh is my name because I will be what I will be, or I am that I am. And it's because there's wordplay. There's actually some difficulty with understanding. I haven't looked at this in years. I'm going to say that a lot. I can already tell in these calls or in these programs. There's some ambiguity, probably intentionally, between. There's certainly wordplay with what the four letters of the Tetragrammaton of Yahweh's name, and its etymology. The etymology I think is more complicated, but I haven't looked at that in a while. But definitely, so yeah. So Hayah, Hey Yod Hey is. That wasn't karate chopping something. I said that is to be the linking verb, and so it probably almost certainly in Exodus 3, but etymologically I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Okay, I need to stop rambling.
Excellent. No, that was good. Yes, so we have a selection of questions. Hopefully they should be quite quickly to go through. Sorry, this poor guy has been waiting for a while. In the New Testament, Paul is quite clear that one cannot keep the Torah, and that if one could be righteous through it, then Christ died for nothing. However, there are a significant amount of passages in the Old Testament that clearly state that you can keep the law. Does the wording in Hebrew suggest that one must keep the law perfectly, or does it suggest that as long as one is keeping it to the best of their ability, that is sufficient?
I mean, so the question, I think, may assume this sort of unity in the text that may not be there. That I think probably is not there. Where there's this perfect connection, this perfect correlation between the Old Testament text and the New Testament. So Paul's point, clearly, particularly in the book of Romans, is all are guilty before God, right? So the Jew, the Greek, even those before the law came in, while they couldn't be guilty of law breaking from the standpoint of the Torah, they were still guilty before God. Nevertheless, death reigned. So I think that when we talk about, you're talking about two different things here. Torah keeping, I think, in the Old Testament was not. There wasn't this concern that if one. Sorry, I keep picking at my nails. That's what Megan is doing. I haven't taken my medication to not pick at my nails in a while. But the Old Testament's not. It's not thinking the same way from a salvific perspective. Everyone must keep every facet of the law in order to attain that righteousness that you see being spoken about there in particularly in Paul's epistles. It's a different facet. It's a different mindset. Again, I haven't researched this, so I'd want to nuance what I'm saying with. I'd like to do some research before I say something definitively here. But Paul's point is definitely justification by faith. It can't be from the works of the law. This is his point in so many of his epistles. So how is one justified? Not by the works of the law, but by fidelity of Jesus Christ and faith in that. So,
okay, next one. Most of the so-called messianic prophecies in the New Testament are completely ripped out of their original context.
Yes.
However, one of the most common arguments I get is that the authors of the New Testament are using midrash. This is true in at least some cases, so my question is, does midrash have a prophetic use, or was it never meant to be used that way? And can it be used to prove any sort of prophecy? I don't know what midrash is.
The person we should get Brack on here. Sorry, I'm thinking about the question. Brack it'd be interesting to hear his perspective on that. As far as New Testament authors, New Testament use of the Old Testament is actually pretty complicated. Some of the differences between what you see in the Hebrew and what you see in the New Testament text is due to probably in some cases. I want to be careful how I, because there are differing opinions on this. Could be due to the use of the Septuagint. Of the New Testament authors, they're quoting from the Septuagint rather than from the MT. But no, I don't think, the New Testament authors are utilizing the Old Testament text in a way that best suits what it is that they're trying to say. So, you can see, I think, pretty clearly in many cases, Jesus, for example, fulfilling prophecies in very odd ways. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Well, here's how. They went down to Egypt a little bit and then they came back out. Well, that's a really interesting way to fulfill that prophecy. That wasn't probably like a prophecy in that sense. I guess I'd have to hold off on talking about the Midrash because I haven't looked into that. But maybe I'll talk to Brack because
we could just get Brack on for like a Judaism, Christianity, Mesopotamia Q&A session.
That'd be really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 2 more questions and then we are done. There are many Christian apologetic websites and fundamentalist Bible scholars who dispute the evidence presented by mainstream biblical scholarship, which show that the Bible is probably a man-made document. How reliable are these types of people, and if they are not reliable, what would you say are the fundamental flaws in their reasoning?
What was the first part? There are many
Christian apologetic websites and fundamentalist Bible scholars
who dispute the evidence
presented by mainstream scholarship.
Let me show you one that is kind of popular. At least I hear it a lot, and that is Gleason Archer in this book. Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties. I don't know if many of you have seen this, but when we were talking to Alan from Alabama, that was sort of the direction that I was trying to, or something I was trying to allude to, where you have, people who are people like Gleason Archer, very intelligent man. There's no question about it, very intelligent man. But I think in a lot of ways, what he's doing is he's trying to figure out a way to maintain this inspiration, inerrancy, understanding the biblical text. And so I guess what I would say is I did a video, one of the slavery videos, it's in the playlist, where I just read out and have up on the screen a bunch of different quotes. And I think I did it then. Maybe it was on Skylar's channel. I don't remember anymore what I've done because I'm old now. But one of the things that is very, very clear, sorry, there's this little...
I know.
I'm going to have to put my hands in my pockets or something. There's not this dichotomy between peer-reviewed scholarly sources, peer-reviewed secondary literature. There's not this gulf that exists between those that think that Ezekiel 26 was actually fulfilled and meant to be fulfilled by God. That Ezekiel actually meant that Alexander the Great was going to fulfill that. There's not this divide in biblical scholarship, peer-reviewed biblical scholarship, or about the Exodus. There's not this great divide there. There are a couple of scholars. Why am I blanking on their names now? Dr. Maggie Bryson. We did a stream where we talked about the Exodus, and God, why am I?
William Reed?
Oh, no, sorry. I'm trying to think of
Exodus.
the Exodus scholars. I can't remember their names now, which was really terrible. But anyway, if you watch that video, you'll see they're very intelligent. They're very good scholars. I think when you leave their scholarship of the Exodus, but it's because it's such an important part to them. They tend to, I don't want to call it cognitive dissonance, but in my opinion, and in Egyptological, the field of Egyptology, they kind of leave behind what I would consider good scholarship. So yeah, I would say if you're interested in something like what do scholars think about Isaiah 53 and what is not the balance, but who says that Isaiah 53 is fulfilled, was supposed to be prophesying about Jesus, or Ezekiel 26. Get up with me, and I'll get you the peer-reviewed secondary literature, and you'll see that there's not this like even balance between them. Evangelical and liberal scholars all agree there was slavery in the Old Testament, and that it wasn't nice, right? It's not it's not really a debated thing. Okay.
Last question, and then we're going to call it a night. But we will be doing this again probably next week. This has been really, really fun. Probably not every Sunday, but we will be doing it again. Lastly, there are times in the Old Testament when it talks about sacrifices. The Hebrew word often used for atonement means something like to cover up or cover over. Many take this to mean that the atonement was only temporary or limited, but is that really the idea that the Hebrew conveys?
I mean, I don't know that it would necessarily be in the lexeme. I haven't thought about that. It's not so much in the word as it is in the practice. So, this was something that you read through the book of Hebrews, for example, and you see that it's clear from the Old Testament text that this wasn't something that they did once and then it was over. This had to be done regularly on a very fixed schedule. And it was part of the feasts, right? It was part of the festivals. It was, but routine, recurring atonement was, kafar means to cover over something. And so it did. But it was definitely temporary. And that's the whole point, I think, of the book of Hebrews is that, when from a theological standpoint, when you have Christ atoning for the sins of the world, that he's doing so in a way as the final sacrifice. When I say that, I think of the Mystery Science Theater episode, The Final Sacrifice. Everybody's looking at the screen going, sorry. Yes, so it was definitely temporary, but I think that's more of a contextual issue or a contextual conclusion more than strictly lexical.
Excellent, thank you. That was a tour de force.
This is stressful, actually. It's good, but every time somebody asks a question, I think, do I know the answer to this? Or am I going to have to say, I'm sorry, I don't have to look into it.
But they don't mind us saying we don't know.
That's true.
So, announcements. Tuesday, join me on Twitch for our very first gaming stream. I'm going to try and simulcast it on YouTube and on Twitch, so if you don't have Twitch, don't worry. At some point, even if I don't manage to get the live stream up in the moment, I will upload it afterwards.
But get Twitch so that you can watch her play Rousdower. Yes! Oh, that's amazing. Micah Hesketh knows what I'm talking about. I'm Rousdower. Zaf Rousdower.
You've made his day, Micah. Thank you. But yeah, that's on Tuesday. I'm finishing up the script for my decipherment of cuneiform video. It's probably going to have to be a 2-parter because it's ridiculously long but interesting. Frustrated Atheist, what game? I'm playing Heaven's Vault, which is not going to be like exciting like maybe playing Fortnite would be, but I think it's going to be interesting and engaging, so I'm very excited.
And Iron Charioteer. Ow, 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 ow. Atheist owned. Okay, sorry. He said G-Man chat.
I saw.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I saw.
It's probably weird to... yeah, sorry.
I
will be on Skylar's channel probably tomorrow night and definitely on Wednesday. We are hosting on Wednesday that NIFB cult member, so please come out for that. It's all the support we can get for that would be great.
Yep. So thank you all for joining us. This was lots of fun.
Go to sorry.
No, go for it.
Megan has redone or like revamped her.
Yeah, so I spent the weekend working on rebranding us with graphics bits and pieces. So if you go on our Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, all of the banners have changed. I think they look kind of cool. I'm biased, obviously, but I think they look good.
And if you go to our website, it's got the link
the
to
website
Teespring.
is mostly
and
finished.
she's redone some of the stuff on Teespring, right? You cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Do we have a Streamlabs thing set up yet?
We do, but I don't know where it is.
Okay. So we do have Streamlabs. If you haven't gotten your Skylar Fiction, man, I haven't talked to that guy in so long. Can't remember the last time I talked to Skylar Fiction. But if you haven't gotten...
He definitely didn't just ask you to talk erotically to him.
That's right, yeah.
That wasn't
Skylar.
Skylar.
Yeah, definitely not. But if you haven't gotten the mug or the T-shirt on the anti-apologetics mug or T-shirt, go to his Streamlabs. If you go to his one of his recent streams or videos or whatever, it's in the link. Anyway, I've got my mug coming. I think it should be here tomorrow.
It has a picture of his hat.
It's got his hat. Megan drew it. It's one of the reasons that I think it's so cool. And it says, the Skylar Fiction show where apologetics comes to die, which is a little antagonistic, but it's funny.
I think it suits Skylar's
It
style.
does. It definitely does.
Anyway, we need to wrap this up and go to bed. Yami and Mizuki, what's going on with the tea?
Teespring?
Teespring is still there. I just tidied it up a little bit. There were some designs that had never sold, so there's no reason to keep them up. The cult member. So Josh and Skylar are doing a stream on Wednesday on Skylar's channel, talking to one of the NIFB cult members.
If you haven't seen, what's going on with or what went on last weekend with the NIFB, you can go to Telltale. You can go to Mr. Atheist channel. You should be subscribing, by the way, to all
has
these.
A bunch of
Shannon
stuff.
Q, Atheist Rationale, Raging Atheist. Who else?
I mean, those are the most of the people that I know.
Sorry. And they will link you to the other ones as well that I'm forgetting because I'm terrible.
Yeah. But thank you, everybody. This was so much fun. If you called, thank you for calling. It was lovely to have you. If you were just hanging out with us in the chat, we have the best chats, I think, ever. Do. You guys are always amazing. So thank you for coming. We will see you later in the week.
And until next time, resist poor scholarship. Always ask,
how do you know that?